Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers. Connecting through Zoom is the way to go. So let's dive right in. It's Boomer Zoomers.
Hi, folks. This is Larry the Liberty Guy here for In the Dugout with another exciting edition of the Boomer Zoomers. And joining me are my three friends. Gentlemen, introduce yourselves. Say hello to our millions of adoring fans.
Hello, millions of adoring fans. My name is Bill Isabella. To my right is
Jeff Coons.
And to his right is
And McCoy.
Gentlemen, we have found ourselves living in 1984, right? So language does not mean what it used to. The left is on the march, and you guys have tipped me off to one of the worst bills I think I have ever seen. So I'm going to share my screen right now and tell our audience quickly about this bill. And you guys can feel free to add things on. So this is working its way through the General Assembly and all the horrors that it entails. So they call it the Freedom to Read Act. However, this is not my definition of freedom, right? So they are trying to say that we are trying to censor books in libraries when in fact they are trying to indoctrinate children with their Marxist leftist agenda and using LGBTQ, the whole letter alphabet as their excuse. So gentlemen, what do you want to add? What's your take? I'm listening.
well, in the first position, Larry, this S-2281, Senate Bill S-2281, we know it left the Senate floor on May 31st. And as of this morning, myself and Jeff both tried to find out where it is on the House of Representatives floor, but no, and we cannot find it anywhere. So if you can find it, please let us know. My guess is this has been passed on the floor, but not, for whatever reason, allowed to be made public. And quite frankly, I'm not opposed to any book being banned, any book, but appropriately. And I think my colleagues would support that. So if you're going to have a book like Genderqueer, it doesn't belong in a fourth grade library, maybe a high school library.
Absolutely. We are all good Americans and we believe in free speech. We believe in the First Amendment. This has nothing to do with that, right? There's a huge difference between giving these books to kids and adults being able to access these things. These are completely things. Now, talking about the process in the General Assembly, it takes years for bills to work their way through, right? So just because it's paused or not paused, once it's there, it's a process, right? So there's always back and forth. So the status of the bill, as people watch this, they can be watching this years from now, hard to tell where we're at. So let's just stick to where the ideas are. So gentlemen, why do you think they're doing this? What do you think is up?
It's an attempt on our state legislature to, get their nose underneath the camel's tent and to introduce this kind of stuff in the public school system and in the public libraries also.
Yeah, but what's their reasoning behind it, right? I mean, it seems like common sense people everyone would be against this, and yet our General Assembly, our elected officials are still out there trying to move this forward. Why is that? Do you think there's a small group of people that have a lot of influence over them, or do you think this is something that, is a good thing for everybody?
Well, I think they're definitely into grooming our young people. I heard a commentator ask the other day, how come they never go to the nursing homes and present their drag queen story hours to nursing home residents? Well, we know about the history of pederasty and grooming throughout human history. So this is just a modern example of that, because history does repeat itself.
The indoctrination that's going on in schools is absolutely hideous. The schools should be there for education, not indoctrination. I think what they're trying to do, as Jeff pointed out, they're grooming these students to accept anything and everything the government wants to say, and that is on the road to Marxism, absolute and total Marxism. Make no mistake about it.
100% agree.
The history aspect. I want to go back even further in terms of history, but Sodom and Gomorrah, look out, here we come.
Gentlemen, I think you're completely right when you hit the nail on the head where it says why the drag queens aren't in the nursing homes. It's right. Kids don't know better. They don't know what this is wrong, right? they look to their authorities and they say, hey, this is the lesson that's being taught to me by the people that I'm supposed to trust. And it seems like that's why they're targeting them, right? I mean, the kids just don't know what they don't know. And they don't do it in nursing homes because people that are older understand, hey, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. And it is absolutely a Marxist plan to weaken the children so they're going to be easier to vote the way they want, do what they want, and march right off the cliff.
And I think we need to make a clear distinction between homosexuality and transgenderism. The two are not, they may run in parallel circles, but they twain shall never meet, as the saying goes. I think homosexuality is one thing. I think that's a condition it's a human condition. Whereas I believe transgenderism and drag queens and all that, that's a social issue. And that's something that I think should be controlled and not allowed to happen to young children. So that distinction is not clearly made. They want to associate with, so if you're a transgender, you hate homosexual. No, not necessarily. I don't, certainly I don't. Maybe we differ on this and this dais here. But the fact is there's a big difference between someone who is homosexual and someone who's a transgender, as far as I'm concerned.
Bill,
Sure.
Bill, you make a fantastic point with that, right? So we used to consider the sterilization of mentally ill children a crime against humanity. And now we're taking these mentally ill kids, filling them up with hormone blockers, giving them irreversible surgeries. It's barbaric, it's mutilation, it is extremely disturbing. There are adults that suffer with mental health issues, and I'm not a clinician, I'm not a doctor. What they decide for the adults, those are two different things, going after these kids. And this bill seems like a toehold into all of that, right?
It sure is. Matter of fact, when we brought the subject up a couple of weeks ago in our group, it morphed into a discussion of homosexuality. And there was definitely a disagreement between those that thought one thing and the ones that thought the other. And I think that's a discussion that most people should have, but we're afraid to have it because we don't want to be known as homophobic. Like we don't want to be known as any of the other isms that populate our society.
That's absolutely what the left does, right? We can't have these open, good discussions anymore. They're afraid of having real discussions, which is something that I love about your group, that you guys are out there still doing that, unafraid. Gentlemen, closing thoughts. What do you want to add?
I'll add the point that I read the bill about 3 times. And it seems to infer that the librarian is the one who's going to make the decision as to what books should enter the library and what shouldn't. And that leaves no recourse. There is no sense of appeal. Now, most of the towns, I know South Kingstown has a board of trustees for the library. Are they going to be removed from the decision-making process? And that's the definition of a tyrant when they just have one person making the decision and everybody has to live with it. So I find that very dangerous, that the sovereignty of the board of trustees of the library will be gone. And therefore, the people that live in the town, the residents and the citizens of the town, will lose it too.
More than that, who are these librarians to be making decisions in the place of parents?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It should be the parents that are deciding what's best, not these unelected librarians that are just get a job at a library that have been infiltrated by Marxists all across America.
Absolutely.
And we're not actually banning the books. If you want to buy that book, you can go to Amazon. I'm sure they'll ship it to you. It's just the objection of having that real pornography appearing in a library in a public school.
Right there with you, my friend. I don't want to ban any books. I just don't want them being forced upon children. There's a difference between those two things. And as adults, as sophisticated adults with common sense in our heads, we can clearly see that. And you know what? I think the American people can see that too, right? So I think that this issue, there's a lot of people on our side on this. And I think the left has really overreached when it comes to these things. So you know what? If they pass this bill, if these bills become law, I think there's going to be a real backlash. It's disturbing that it's even being considered, but I think that the American people are waking up to these issues.
It's also called community standards.
Right, exactly, right. Something that we need to have in each community, so important. All right, gentlemen, that is our segment. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. This has been Larry the Liberty Guy for In the Dugout. See you next game.